Hello everybody and welcome to yet another build video for the Summerset patch, and this is going to be the updated version of my Shocket launcher build. So Shocket launcher, for those who haven't seen it, is potentially the sexiest gank to ever walk on this earth. It's sexier than Tank Spank, it's sexier than all the Viper Velodrift nonsense that existed. It is the way to go in the ganking world. It hits hard, it hits bursty, and it's damn gorgeous indeed. So how this build works is essentially a combo using Overload and a couple of skills to stack enormous damage in a split second. Oh, chip, so. Enormous damage in a split second, and we're going to stun our target during that. So they have no time to react. There is no counterplay to this at all unless they have Miat's add-on, if that will still work in the Summerset patch. Who knows? But it does work in the current one. It's whatever. So I'm going to cover everything, sets, skills, etc. Then I'll explain the combo. We have Vix here as a target dummy to show you why. He is currently in, just for an example here, 2.6k crit resist and 29k spell resist with 25k health, just so you can see that as a comparison. So, our sets. First of all, we're using two slime core. We have an infused helmet in heavy and a divine's shoulder in medium. In this build, all of our big pieces are infused and all of our small pieces are divines. It is slightly more damage than divines on the big for whatever reason. I don't know why. That's going to give us Minor Berserk. It's also going to up our crit, which is not that bad, but the Minor Berserk is going to outweigh stacking two damage sets, e.g. one Kenner and one Groftar, one Kenner, one Dommerhouse. The list goes on. The Minor Berserk is worth more burst. Our next 5 pieces is then going to be Spinner, again infused on the big pieces, and Divines on the smalls. That's going to give us Magicka, spell damage, and penetration. In this build, light armor is screwed. They're not going to live. Medium armor is screwed. They're not going to live. The only thing that has the remotest chance of surviving is heavy, and penetration is how we're going to deal with that. So we can still consistently kill almost any heavy target without fail. It's very, very consistent gank. Most targets will die. Not to jinx myself on the test now. Our next 5-piece set is then going to be elegant. So this is going to be on the jewellery and the weapons. All of our glyphs are going to be infused spell damage on the elegant. It's slightly more damage than going arcane. So again, we're stacking for a gank here. You want to go full fist damage. That is our approach on those. And then our weapons are going to be an elegant Nirnhone sword with the weapon and spell damage glyph. And then an elegant sharpened sword on the offhand with any glyph of your choice. It actually doesn't matter because it's almost never going to proc, if ever. So yeah, I didn't even bother changing that because it's that unlikely to proc. On the back bar then, we are also running the Master Lightning Staff. This is doing a slightly different job. This is for the occasions where we might get caught in a fight. And sometimes it's got enough fightability just about to get out of there. And it's nice to have a spammable DPS, something to CC and that sort of thing. It's making it cheaper, it's making it so you're not completely and utterly screwed, and it just does a bit of a job. You could also run a Fire Staff there, also fun because that control. The nice thing about Lightning Staff is you're going to be able to heavy attack for sustain reliably, and there are a number of fights where I've been able to save myself on the live server in this build, simply with that back bar staff to sustain, with one of our skills to sustain, and just slowly taking the fight. But it's not going to be optimized. Either way, you're going to want to have that infused with the glyph. If you choose to just full fist for the gank and accept your fate in a normal fight, you can also go for a decisive staff of any kind on this back bar. It really doesn't matter. And that will give you a bit more ult gen if you run out of ult. But assuming you're consistently getting kills, you'll be good to go on the ult front. So don't worry too much. Moving on to our skills then. So the skill bar, again, disclaimer. This is going to be a mess. Try to understand that the skills are all buff related and this is not related to our gank, which you'll see in a sec. Firstly, we're using Ball of Lightning. This is going to be for our movement. It's going to be our escape if shit gets real. It's also going to create that ball behind us to protect us a bit, which is going to be key for survival on such a squishy build. We are then using Boundless Storm. That's for the mobility buff. Again, it's all about getting out of there if it goes wrong. Hardened Ward for the big boy shield. That's going to keep us alive. Not a huge tooltip, but an okay tooltip because we have a lot of spell damage, not Magicka. And then we are using Twilight for our heal. We don't have a restoration staff. You can run that on the back bar, but again, what that means is in an open fight, you can't really do anything if you're caught, and you're never going to sustain without elemental drain. So Twilight, it gives you a bit of a chance in an open world fight. It's not bad, it's not too hard to summon, and it's going to give you a chance. Number 4 then is a different skill to our previous build. It's going to be Channeled Acceleration. So this is going to give us Minor Force and Major Expedition. It's the Minor Force we're after here. The Major Expedition is pretty much irrelevant. But that is going to give us 36 seconds of extra crit damage. That is very, very good because that is going to amp up our burst a lot when we are getting those crits. and it's going to make a big difference when it is so much uptime. On the back bar, again, as I mentioned, this is all about support. We're running Elemental Drain. It's a must-have for if you get caught in a previous fight. It can also be used in the gank, which I'll explain when I show you the combo, should your target be a bit oblivious and extremely tanky. So if you see an ultra scrubby guy who's got like 50k health, that is still gankable. If you pop Ele Drain on them and they don't realise, most of those guys won't, you're probably good to go here. You could probably still get that down. Number 2 then is going to be Destructive Reach. Again, like I said, that's going to give you some sort of spammable DPS. It's not hitting that hard. It's not that sustainable, but it is going to give you a chance if you're caught in fights, and it saved me more than a number of times on the live server. Hardest then, we want double shields with super low crit resist. As long as those shields are up, we're alive. As soon as they're down, say goodbye, sayonara. So double shields there. And then number 5, again, Twilight, we have to double bar that. That is not going to be on an overload bar, which I'll explain in a sec. So when you want to actually go on your overload, sorry, off your overload after a burst, just make sure that if you're worried about getting in a fight, you're going to resummon that as a first thing after your shields, just so you are ready. It's completely fine to do that. It's not that bad, and it's going to be viable. On the back bar, our ulti is then going to be the Psijic ulti. So this is actually there for 2 reasons. Firstly, minor protection is always good news. 8% less damage is nice. But it's also going to give us that ability to teleport back in time. I really like this on the Sorc. You would have seen this on my live Sorc as well. Let's imagine that I've ganked somebody with this, and we've been doing it over and over, and the Zerg, they ain't happy. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep moving away from them. We're going to jump off a cliff. They're going to follow. Boom, off we go. Temporal Guard, teleport back, and see you, mates. So that's a nice way to get out of trouble there. Number 4 is then going to be our reset. That's going to be Deep Thoughts. This is the morph of Meditate, and this is going to give us loads and loads of magicka and stamina back. So if we do go for a gank, we escape with our invis port or whatever, we don't have huge regen. It could be a bit of a bugger waiting. This just speeds up the regank. You can pop that up. A few seconds later, you are ready to go. It's 4k magicka and stamina regen, so it's fast. Right, so let's move on to our overload. So obviously our overload is a key part of our gank here. If we cast our overload, we get the following skills. Now, this morph of overload, by the way, is going to be crucial. You're going to want to go for power overload. So this is the one that actually looks, in principle, rubbish. But it actually does slightly more damage. For whatever reason, I didn't know this last time, it does do more damage. Our number 1 skill is going to be Bound Armaments. This is going to increase our max stamina. Who cares? But what it is going to do is it's going to increase our light attack damage by 11%. This counts on overload. That is a huge buff to not have. It's key to the build. Same as the Elegant, 20% buff. Another 11% is a lot of damage. Number 2, you need to understand this before dissing it. So either listen or don't bother commenting. Crystal Blast. It is essential to take Blast, not Frag. You can build up a Frag in stealth using this, but you'll then have no CC. That's fine. More importantly, the Arch doesn't work. You want your Overload to hit first, because your Overload is going to proc your weapon and spell damage glyph. Your Blast will not. How Blast works compared to Frag. When you launch Frag, here's target number 1, target number 2. Blast, it goes up and over to hit the target. Frag goes straight through in a straight line. That is no use, because if it goes straight through, it's going to hit before the Overload. Blast will loop over, and your Overload will hit first, meaning you'll get another 350 spell damage on both your Blast and your second Overload, rather than just on your second Overload. If you want to use Frag there, you can, but you're going to have no stun, which is going to guarantee your kills. And frankly, this is the more reliable for your weapon and spell damage. So it's up to you, but it's going to be best. Number 4 is going to be Inner Light, more magicka. It's always a good thing. It's just there for damage. No other reason really. But it's also going to give us our Empower. Now, Empower works differently now. So if I go into the Mage Guild, we go down to the bottom. Casting a Mage Guild ability grants you Empower, increasing damage of your next light attack by 40% for 5 seconds. That is big boy damage. It hits hard, so that's well worth doing. I think it's slightly bugged on the PTS. It doesn't seem to do 40% more, but it's still huge damage. 5 is going to be Power Surge. This is for our major sorcery. You don't want entropy because it's going to break your stealth. So we go for Power Surge, and this does need to be on your overload bar. It can't be on your main bar, hence it is here. Finally, another bit added to our burst since the previous build, we also have Elemental Weapons. So this says, infuse your weapon with power, causing your next light attack used within 2 seconds to deal an additional 9,600 damage and apply burning, concussion, or chill. Unfortunately, there's no way to make these status effects reliably work, but the damage, we can make that reliably work in the gank. So if you wanted the status effects to work, how our combo works at the moment is we'll launch the Blast, during the cast we'll launch the Overload. Overload will connect, Blast will connect, they'll CC. During that time we've already cast a second Overload, they're going down, it connects just as they're CC'd, an Elemental Weapon will be cast during the flight of the second Overload, and we'll hit the target. So we'll get 2 overloads, blast, and elemental weapon, all hitting hard as a truck, completely unmitigated and blocked. So that is huge damage. If you want to get the concussion, you would have to go with blast, overload, elemental weapon, overload. There's a bit of a delay when you do that. You won't get it off. So you want to go elemental weapon here. So let me show you this burst real fast. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast, first of all, channeled acceleration. We then find our spot in stealth. We get on our overload bar and we cast surge. We're then going to mage light and we're going to cast blast at a good range. Overload. Overload again at elemental weapon. And that will all connect for the kill. In this case, we didn't crit the second overload. We didn't even get elemental weapon off. And we're still guaranteeing the kill. The damage is huge. Now, there was a guy earlier with 52k health, I think it was, in a sort of light armorish PvP build, just to sort of trial and see how much you could tank. You could still burst that. It's huge, huge damage. So let me show you that one more time just to explain. So we cast channeled. When, by the way, you cast that in stealth and you use overload, you're going to break stealth. So it's important you go into your overload outside of stealth. We're then going to cast Power Surge to get our sorcery up. We're going to cast Mage Light, Heavy Cast, the Frag, launch Overload during the same time, second Overload and Elemental Weapon on the way, and that's your kill. It's a huge nuke burst. He cannot break CC before that other stuff hits, and you will kill almost any target with this build whatsoever. Again, he is currently nearly capped crit resist. He's at 2.6 or 2.8, whatever I said. He's 29k spell resist, so it doesn't get much tankier than this. Good luck with the build. Now, final thing to mention are those stats, of course, if you want to see those. Stats look as follows. Our overload bar is the only bar that matters, so who cares about the other one? 40k magicka, 21k health in combat, 11k stamina is fine. Recovery is pretty low, but we're using clockwork citrus food to get that up a bit. So that's going to give us that, and that is giving us 1.3k magic recovery. Spell damage, big boy. 3.7k spell damage. You know, we're hitting hard as hell. And then we are also 46% crit. That can go up to 49%. I don't know what causes that. Crit resist, obviously pretty low, but we're using our CP to get that. Last but not least is, of course, our CP. So we go into there to show you how we've min-maxed that. We're going to start with the green and work our way to the important one. 56 tumbling for roll dodge. 76 into Arcanist, that's the most recovery you can stack. 56 in Mooncraft for our limited stamina recovery. 6 Sprinter and 56 Warlord. You could easily move these Mooncraft into Sprinter if you want a cheaper sprint cost. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And in the past, I would run 39 in Sprinter to Kite. That's absolutely fine to do. Doesn't make much difference. I'm just running this because it's my old green tree. But green tree, as long as you've got 76 in Arcanist and a decent amount of tumbling and Warlord, it really doesn't matter. Red tree, again, is going to be identical to our previous Silk build. 19 Elemental Defender. Light attacks hit hard in this patch. 56 Bastion. You're going to want decent sized shields with such low crit resist. Oops. 32 and 32 in Elemental Defender and Hardy. 20 in Thick Skinned. The reason we've lowered those three is to get a bit of crit resist. So 35 in crit resist. 56 in Ironclad. Now, where things get fancy is the blue tree. So blue tree, none in Thaumaturge, obviously. But in this tree, we are now getting really frisky. 56 in Master at Arms to increase our direct damage done. We'll come back to physical weapons in a sec. 56 into Elfborn to increase our crit damage. 49 into Elemental Expert for our flat damage. 45 into Erosion for penetration. And physical weapon 44. Increase your damage done with the light and heavy attacks for two-handed, one-hand, shield, and dual and bow weapons by 24%. This applies to Overload. Lord only knows why, but it does. So you are going to want those points. Now, it doesn't scale completely all right, but it's definitely increasing that Overload. You're going to want them in. It's a huge change, and I may even add some of those to my other Sorc build. Final thing to mention here is going to be our Mundus. We are using the Lover. Apprentice is slightly less, but if you're struggling with Sorcs, you could go for that. As it is, if I quickly show you against Chipso, even against shielded targets, you're pretty much good to go here. Oh, I must already be out of combat. I am. So let me go over to Chipso real fast to challenge him to combat. He's already in combat, damn. Luckily, he's on mic, so he knows. So he's going to leave combat. We're going to go over to Chipso. He's going to double shield. Now, no, he is pretty squishy here. Most Sorcs, you're going to want to wait till they only have one shield. But if we do it against that double shielded sorcerer, we still have the kill available to us. It's still completely fine to get. That's how much damage we have. So we pop our channel focus on. We go into Overload and Stealth. We cast our Surge. We Empower. We heavy cast the Frag. Overload. Overload Empower. And then he dies. And that's the kill. Good luck with the build, guys. It's a juicy, juicy gank. We're coming out in Summerset. It does work in the live, but not quite as strong as the current one. And I'll see you in the next video. I'll be releasing ganks for other classes still this patch.